Morning, everyone. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and we thank God that we are still alive, and we thank God that our country is still safer than the rest of the world. And we thank God for this opportunity that we are here today, and we are still able to produce some of these YouTube channels. And thank you very much for those that are viewing. Please like and subscribe, and please share with all your families and friends and colleagues, because a lot of our people are going through a lot, and some of the people, you might think all is well, but there's a lot that people do not share, and you wonder why people have committed suicide. It's because they don't have anyone to trust, they don't have anyone to share, because these are the days where people are more focused about themselves personally than focused about their families, extended families, and their immediate families. So I would really love you to share with your family, so that, and friends and colleagues, and so that they know that, some of the things are not as challenging as that. It's things that can be sorted out. Today I want to share the intestate succession. The intestate succession is where a person passes on without a will. And what happens is that if the person was married who has passed on, then it means there's a surviving spouse, and it might happen that there are children involved. So what happens is that the surviving spouse will then get a letter of executorship, or an attorney can be appointed, or an agent can be appointed. What happens is then that the surviving spouse will then get 50% from the estate of the deceased, and on top of that will get a child share from the estate of the deceased, and thereafter the children of the marriage will then get the child share. So that's how it happens with people that are married in community of property. You get your share, which is 50% from the estate, and then you still get a half share, a child share of the deceased estate. It depends on the value, though, of the estate. However, this will happen when the estate is more than 400,000. Now, what happens where a child passes on, not a child, but major child? Let's say they are single, and they were already working and they've passed on. Who inherits? The person that is going to inherit would be the parent of the um, deceased. Those are the people that are going to inherit from the estate of the deceased. What happened where the deceased passed on and there are no parents? What is going to happen is that then the siblings of the deceased will then inherit from the estate of the deceased. That's how it's going to happen. So what happens when the deceased has passed on and has left a minor behind? What is going to happen is that the minor child will then inherit the estate of the deceased. And when this happens is that whatever that comes to the minor child after the creditors have been paid, the fund will then have to be dealt by the master's office, because remember, the master's office is the guardian of the children. Why? Because of the High Court actually is the guardian of the children. So The master's office will be the one that are dealing with the funds of the minor child. What happens is that whoever that is going to be looking after the minor child will then have to, for any expense, will then have to deal with the master's office directly. The only time the child will be able to get all the funds to themselves, it's when they have turned 18. When you turn 18, then that money will then have to be paid into the major child. And at the same time, there are going to be forms that needs to be completed to prove that you are actually the child of the deceased. So what happens with the stepchildren? The stepchildren will then only inherit from the estate of the deceased if the child is the child of the deceased. Whether it's a father, whether it's a mother, the fact remains, I don't know whether there's a stepchild from a mother's side. But if it's the biological child of the deceased, not from the marriage, then that child will inherit from the estate of that parent who has passed on. I know our African way, we tend to not want these children to benefit or to inherit from their biological, but unfortunately, by law, that child is entitled to inherit from their father's side. Now, what happens in a case where it's adoption? In our African way, the adopted child will not inherit from that estate. However, if that adopted child was adopted legally, then that child is entitled to inherit from the estate of the deceased. And even when the surviving one passes on, they will inherit because that was done legally. Now, people need to understand that if you're doing things in an African way, it then affects the same child that you took care of during the course of your life. And you adopted that child in an African way so that they can have a better life. So for you want to see them continue getting that support. So you will have to register them, and you'll have to adopt them legally, seriously, so that even when you are not there, they are taken care of. Now, this is basically what happens with an intestate succession. It depends who has passed on, then you inherit. If not, no. In instances where the people are married out of community of property, it works differently, because the first thing that is going to direct how you're going to inherit, firstly, we need to see as a surviving spouse what was that antenuptial contract, the terms in it, what were the terms in that antenuptial contract. And thereafter, is there a will that has been left behind? Because with the antenuptial contract, we have those with accrual, we have those that a person doesn't get anything. So that is why I'm saying with the one out of community of property, it will be directed by the antenuptial contract, how the estate is going to be dealt with. I hope the information will come handy And I hope that Iran and Israel and Palestine, it doesn't come to our country where we find ourselves the same way as they are. And I hope that God intervenes and fight the battle in a way that people's lives are not destroyed. Already they are, because if you have to live where you stay, move to a foreign land, that means your life already has been destroyed. And I wish you the best of the day, and I love you. Bye.